We're going to talk about a quadrantal angle. This is the part 2 of lesson 2. So we're going to begin by talking about a quadrantal angle. That's a weird word, but a quadrantal angle is an angle in the standard XY coordinate plane whose terminal side lies on the X or the Y axis. So basically, that would be 0 degrees, a 90-degree angle, 180, 270, 360, and so on. And we could rotate that multiple times, and we could talk about this in radian measure as well. But a quadrantal angle is an angle whose a central angle or an angle in the standard XY coordinate plane whose terminal side lies on one of the axes. It just means that it's the angle that is splitting the quadrants. So what we're looking at today is I want us to find the values of the 6 trig functions for all of the angles that we've identified on our circle. In the previous examples, we have not worked with specific angle measures. We didn't know what those values were. We didn't know the angle measures. But what we did know was we knew some information about the lengths of the legs of the right triangles, and we were able to get values even though the angle was unknown. Now we're focusing on specific angle measures. So I want to start with 90 degrees first. 90 degrees is a really good visual angle when we want to approach this the way we approach the other examples, previous examples. So let's figure out where 90 degrees is. So I'm going to draw a little picture. And we all know that 90 degrees is here. So this is 90 degrees. My little friend, oh, there goes my little friend again. Sorry. And I want us to think about what 3 things we would need to know to be able to find the value of the trig functions for 90 degrees. Well, we would want to know x, we would want to know y, and we would want to know r. So the way we approached this in the previous examples is we typically said, okay, the terminal side of an angle passes through a particular point. Well, this time we know the angle measure is 90. What we need to do is we need to determine a point for the terminal side to go through. Okay, so we get to choose. And that we could choose any value. We could use any point here as long as the x value is 0. This could be 0.07. We could use 0.2. We could do 0.51 if we wanted to. But what if we just go ahead and make it simple and let's just use 0.1. I'm just going to make it simple that this ordered pair we're going to say is 0.1. So if this point is 0.1, that means our x value is 0. The y value is 1. And let's talk about the radius. Notice that the radius of the circle is also going to be 1. So we have our x, y, and our r. Now we have everything that we need to be able to determine the values of the trig functions. Cosine of 90 will be x over r, so that's 0 over 1, which is 0. Sine of 90 will be y over r, so that's 1 over 1, which is 1. Tangent of 90 will be y over x. Ooh, what is 1 over 0? 1 over 0 is undefined. that means that tangent of 90 degrees, there is no value because that function is not defined. It is undefined. So now when we go to do the reciprocals, secant of 90, well, if cosine was 0 or 0 over 1, secant being the reciprocal will be 1 over 0 or undefined. Cosecant of 90 is will be the reciprocal of sine of 90, which is 1. Cotangent of 90 will be the reciprocal of tangent of 90. And since tangent of 90 was 1 over 0 or undefined, the reciprocal will be 0 over 1 or 0. So when we're talking reciprocals, the reciprocal of 0 is undefined, and the reciprocal of undefined is 0. Okay, so now let's go back to 0. Let's do the same thing for an angle measure that is 0 degrees. So the visual here, we have a graph. You can identify where 0 is. There's our initial side. It is also our terminal side for 0 degrees. If we identify a point, let's talk about a good point to use for the terminals, for the point that the terminal side passes. So again, this point could be, it could be anything as long as the y value is 0. So it could be 11, 0. It could be, 4, 0. But for simplicity's sake, let's let this be 1, 0. So if we let that point be 1, 0, let's identify x, y, and r. So the x value of this point would be 1. The y value is 0. And the r value, the radius of the circle, is also 1. So we have our x, our y, and our r. So we've got everything we need. Determine the value of cosine of 0 degrees. Cosine is x over r, so 1 over 1 equals 1. Sine of 0 is y over r, so I have 0 over 1, which is 0. And tangent of 0 is y over x, 0 over 1, which equals 0. Now for secant of 0, if cosine is 1, secant is 1. Cosecant of 0 degrees will be undefined, and cotangent of 0 degrees will be undefined because these are the reciprocals for 0. So no matter what size your no matter what size your circle is, I'm going to say it that way. If I have a circle that's this big, and I use the point, 1, 0 here, if I have a bigger circle, and this is my terminal side, and that point is now, let's say it's 6, 0, how would using this point be different than using the 1, 0? Well, your x value would be 6, your y value is still 0, your r value becomes 6. So it looks like things are, it looks like there's a significant difference. But watch what happens when you evaluate cosine of 0 degrees. When you use x over r, when that's 6 and 6, well, 6 over 6 is still 1. And then y over r, 0 over 6 would be 0. Tangent y over x, 0 over 6 would still give you 0. So it doesn't matter what size your circle is, the angle measure of 0 degrees doesn't change, and neither do the values of the trig functions. And I will emphasize that again as we look at some others. Okay, so when identifying a point for the quadrantal angles, it's just easiest, we might as well go ahead and use the 1 values instead of anything else, because it's always going to reduce back down to these values. All right, so the next angle measure. Next angle measure is 180. So we've done 0, we've done 90. Now let's talk about 180. We still want X, Y, and R. 180 degrees is here. Let's give this an ordered pair. Well, let's be real creative in the ordered pair that we give it. How about -1, 0? X has to be negative since it's in the negative X direction. The Y value is still 0, so that means X is -1, Y is 0, and R, oops, that's a sad circle. Now, this also represents the radius, so the radius is actually going to be +1, okay? And the radius, remember, is always going to be positive. So we have everything we need to identify the values of cosine, the trig functions for 180 degrees. So cosine of 180, X over R, -1 over 1 is -1. Sine of 180 is Y over R, so 0 over 1 is 0. Tangent of 180 is Y over X, and 0 over -1 is 0. And the others, the 3 reciprocals, should be fairly easy. Secant of 180 will be -1. Cosecant of 180 will be undefined. Cotangent of 180 will be undefined. So again, we're just working with specific angle measures, the quadrantal angles, and finding the values of the trig functions for those angle measures. So let's talk about 270 degrees. Our 270 degrees, where is 270? Well, 270 is here. What angle measure? Pardon me. What angle measure? Not what angle measure, but what ordered pair would be good? Probably 0, -1. Let's talk about X, Y, and R. Of the ordered pair, X is 0, Y is -1, and the radius then will be +1. So cosine of 270, X over R, so that's 0 over 1, which is 0. Sine of 270 is Y over R, which is -1. Tangent of 270 is Y over X, -1 over 0, and that is undefined. All right, so the reciprocals, secant of 270 will be undefined. Cosecant of 270 will be -1, and cotangent of 270, will be 0. Okay. So now we get back to 360. We get back to 360, which takes us all the way back around. And the ordered pair that we used for 0 was 1, 0. And so really the values should be the same as they were for 0 degrees. So X is 1, Y is 0, R is 1. So cosine is 1, sine is 0, tangent is 0. Secant of 360 is 1, cosecant of 360 is undefined, and cotangent of 360 is also undefined. Okay, so we've identified the actual values of the trig functions for our quadrantal angles of 0, 90, 180, 270, and 360. And those values are finite, they are exact, and they never change. So here's what I want us to look at. I've got 3 here. Notice, I want you to kind of focus on each of these ordered pairs that we have here. Really focus on the 3 ordered pairs, and you could do this for the previous 2 examples as well. And I want you to kind of look at the sine and cosine, the cosine and sine values for those angles. And I'm going to end the video here, and then we'll finish out this set of notes with a second video, or the video to follow. But I want you to see if there's anything you think might be significant about the cosine and sine values and the points on the circles that we've used for the point that the terminal side goes through. Okay?